Welcome, everyone. This is actually a nice sized group tonight. I think it's a little bit bigger than what we had the last meeting. Approval of the agenda and the minutes of 6-1 and 6-8. And let it be known that I was the one that screwed up the minutes on the last meeting, that there wasn't any minutes to approve because I simply forgot to put it on the agenda. So if people were wondering why there was no minutes on the last agenda, it was because I simply forgot. The other thing I would say also on the minutes, realize that if we post minutes, and we can talk about this later, but if we post minutes and they have not been in front of the whole board, they are unapproved minutes. Most organizations don't post minutes until after they've been approved, because the legal actions of the board are what's reflected in the minutes. And that if there's a mistake in there and that's posted, then you gotta go and correct the mistake. So I will entertain motions.
I will move to approve the agenda and minutes.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the agenda and the minutes of 6-1 and 6-08. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, recognition of visitors and visitor comments. Again, for those of you that are new, if you do speak, okay, you have to come up here and so that we can get it recorded. The other thing is, if you didn't sign in, you don't have to sign in just to attend, but sign in if you speak so that we know who to contact if there has to be any follow-up. Otherwise, sometimes you don't know who's speaking, and if we don't catch your name and address fast enough, we'd just like to have a record of who speaks. With that being said, is there anybody that would like to address the board? Either one.
Pertaining to agenda items.
Why don't you speak to those and then we'll figure out from there. Generally, we can't take action on any of the items, but if you have clarification, we could probably try to clarify it. Yeah.
Dan Walter, really good at the rest of it.
Oh, okay.
And then push the little man button and I'll turn on the mic. There you go.
Okay. My name is Dan Walter,
Address.
and property address here is N8274 580th Street. That's Colfax. And I would like to state that I am a non-resident property owner here on Tainter Lake. And I have some concerns. This is my first meeting here, and my first concern is the lack of communication that has been provided to the non-property owner or non-resident owners. I found out about the organization by accident. It was communicated to me by someone else. Nobody ever made an effort to communicate with me. And my concern is that's readily accessible information. We're on the property tax rolls. Our information, our contact information is there. And I'm very disappointed that no effort had ever been made to contact us. I know that's true for my next door neighbor, who's also a non-resident owner. And I've heard some comments already from the people here. They have the same concerns. This needs to be addressed. Any communication involving this organization needs to involve all parties, not just the ones that live here.
You have the World Wide Web?
I certainly do, but I shouldn't have to find out by accident.
You read the paper?
I don't get it on a newspaper here. I don't live here.
Okay. I mean, we're doing our best. They are published. It is on the web.
I know that now, but I didn't when this was organized.
The county board meetings. It's all in the newspapers. and-
We don't live here.
Yep.
So how are we supposed to read the paper here?
Just wondering how we're supposed to communicate.
Very simple. You have no trouble getting your tax statements out to us. It's public information. It's on the tax rolls. And again, it's public information. I know because I've accessed it.
So you said we should mail things?
Yes,
Who's paying for that?
not my problem.
It sure is if you want communication, sir.
It is if you're gonna start taxing me.
Well, you will get a mailing about the annual meeting as
Okay,
required by law.
I
No
had,
other communications has been required by law yet.
I had no opportunity to even participate in the general discussion about organizing this.
Sure you did.
How?
County board meetings.
I'm supposed to drive 500 miles to attend a county board meeting. I'm a non-resident. I own the,
They're all on Zoom.
how do I know what you guys are doing if you don't communicate to us?
I think that's our point is we've tried, okay? You and I have talked,
Mhm.
okay? Nothing really has transpired since then. You have the website and those kinds of things.
I do now, yes,
If you
I
please
understand that.
Move on to your next point.
Okay. And again, I'm following items. I've been trying to get caught up. We've been listening to the meeting minutes that you put on the web. So my second one is you've had a lot of discussion about voting rights. And from what I understand, there's some unusual restrictions here in Wisconsin. I do have some experience in this. I've served as the president of our homeowners association and have been through some rather contentious situations with that. So I understand what it's like to serve on a board. As far as these voting rights, I find it very unusual that someone who has no stake in the financial aspects of something has the right to vote on property tax implications regarding a budget where you're going to be submitting a tax levy. A non-owner of the property has the right to vote on something where it makes no difference to them. It does to me. I pay the taxes. I should have the vote, as do the other property owners. Somebody renting a property, are you telling me that the renter gets to vote and the property owner also gets to vote?
Yes.
That is ridiculous.
But that's state statute.
There should be some flexibility in that.
So you have to petition a lawmaker in the state to change the state law if you don't like. We don't set that rule. The commission doesn't set that rule. It's a state statute.
And what does that specifically apply to?
The voting of a lake district.
That it's
To a specific
specifically,
to a lake district, yes.
And just for a point of clarification, the Lake District is different than all of the other voting rights that you have in the state of Wisconsin because it allows non-residents to vote. The legislature expanded the voting rights for lake districts to include non-resident property owners. Otherwise, in the state of Wisconsin, if you lived in Nebraska, you'd never get to vote. You can't vote in the town elections or the county elections.
right,
Okay, but in a lake district, they've expanded that to include non-resident property owners. So they've expanded that. In Wisconsin, the state law is about expansion of voting rights for a lake district, not limiting who can vote and who can't vote. That's the legislature that has done that.
Yeah.
That's not our doing.
okay. And how does the organization go about asking for a change in that? Because I think it's appropriate.
You have to ask the legislature to do that. And you probably won't get a lot of traction because they changed it in like 1980 or something like that. They went back and then rechanged it back to expand it again once before. So you'd have to work through the legislature to do that.
It seems like would be worthwhile for the board to make contact with someone to request a change in that. And the reason I say that is you're making this so complicated as far as the voting process. I heard the discussion going on about, well, we've got 7 people living in this house or 20 people living in this building, and they're each going to have a voting right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
They-
just insane.
It's a state statute. The
I
discussion was. to
heard you on
understand
that.
state
I
statute.
understand.
I didn't understand state statute before the discussion. We talked through it. And it is very clear after reading the statute. And reading the lake districts and all the other information provided for us. That's the rules and we're gonna follow.
Mhm. I'm not asking that you ignore the rules, but I think it's appropriate that the board should move forward and make a formal request.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's appropriate for us as a board to approach the legislature to do that, because then we are limiting, we are telling them who we want to vote, who we don't want to vote. And I think it reflects badly on us as a board.
How? We're protecting the rights of the people who have the financial stake.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But what I'm saying is, if the people that live on the lake want to change, they should take that up with the state legislature. I think for us to tell them to make a change, I don't think is the correct thing to do.
I respectfully disagree, but
That's fine. That's fine.
Please continue.
yeah, I'll table my other concerns.
We have a lot of discussion tonight. It's going to center around, actually, I would say 90% of tonight is going to center around the annual meeting. So maybe some of your questions will be addressed. And the other thing is, we're all available after the meeting if you want to raise some more questions. Or
All right.
if there's something that you think we should add into the next meeting or a future agenda.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kirk Zerline. I live at E6357 County Road D in Colfax. And I also have a concern about voting. And we've been in contact with somebody down at Madison regarding the statutes. And we've been told have not been any changes to the statute since 1979, 1980, and there's nothing regarding voting rights. So I'm sure that you all have something in writing to support your claims. But the statute reads
Which one? 33.
33.
Dot
Uh,
01 dot.
I just have 33. What's the one you got under definition?
01 dot or 9.
Okay, what do you have for definitions? Can I see that?
What's our proposed bylaws that we're gonna.
Well,
talk
that's
about
bylaws. I want the statute. What I'm reading is the exact statute off the website.
Okay, look up the.
This is the current one right off the website.
33.01.9.
Yeah, current one right off the website, off of,
I'm
Google.
saying which one points at what a resident and non-resident can do.
this is under definitions regarding voting. Specifically
Is it-
voting.
AR or AM?
What?
There's a subsection under definitions. on
Okay, let me get to it.
AR and AM.
You all are very freaking defensive and argumentative tonight. And I could see how this is gonna go. When that gentleman was talking, when he was talking about notifications, shunned him off. When you all talked about your notifications, you said every property owner received a mailing. Well, that's not the case because my neighbor,
I did not say that.
I didn't say you. I said in the meeting where the district was gonna be voted on, said that everyone received a flyer. Now, my neighbor's outside, a property owner that's non-resident either. He didn't hear anything about it either. I'm a resident and live on the lake, and I didn't get mailer either, so
You guys are all assuming.
let's
a
not
lot.
go down,
You're
no.
all assuming
When you
a-
assume, it makes an ass out of you and me, so let's stop right there.
Thanks for that.
Let's-
So you're assuming that I was.
I didn't
on
say
the
you.
group- I was part of the group that tried to get this board.
Let's settle
agreement.
down, can I just get to the definitions here, please?
Yes, I'm looking at you. Tell me which one it is.
While you're looking that up, and just want to point out, there are 3 people on this board who are not part of the petition drive. Who weren't part of the initial
Well, that's
mailing.
fine, I'm just saying that
So-
in that meeting, it was stated,
Which
that-
meeting are you talking about?
the one where they voted.
The county.
The county board of supervisors, where they voted to establish the district,
Mhm.
that meeting.
And you noticed I stood up and spoke against the
Well, that's-
creation of Lake
I-
District.
I'm not debating that, I'm just saying that it was stated that every property owner received the mailer.
No,
I think that,
that's true.
I think one of the things that might be helpful for you to understand what's taking place is once the county voted, that was a done deal.
Right,
Okay.
I understand all that, I'm just talking about the mailer where every property owner received one.
We don't have anything to do with that.
We haven't mailed anything yet.
Well,
We're working very hard to create a
That's great.
mailing.
that's,
I applaud
To
that.
announce the annual meeting.
Owner, property owner or landowner means, for the purpose of receiving notice under this chapter, a person whose name appears as an owner of real property on the tax roll under
Yeah.
7 point, and that was delivered under before the 3rd Monday in December in the previous year. For the purpose of petitioning under this chapter, any of the following, a person whose name appears as an owner of real property on the last tax roll. The spouse of a person whose name appears as an owner of real property on the tax roll prior to the 3rd Monday in December of the previous year. For the purpose of voting at meetings of the district, a person who is a U.S. citizen 18 years of age or older and who meets any of the following requirements. The person's name appears as an owner of real property on the tax roll under 7.652A1 that was delivered under 7403 on or before the 3rd Monday in December of the previous year. The person owns title to real property, but the person's name does not appear as an owner of real property on the tax roll specified in sub 1. The person is the official representative, officer, employee authorized to vote on behalf of the trust. So you have to be on the tax roll in order to vote.
There's 2 requirements. Well, there's.
3,
You gotta be 18, you gotta be
Yeah.
a citizen,
you have to be on
be
the
on the
tax
tax
roll.
roll,
Yeah,
or you can be a resident.
no,
You're wrong.
no, I'm not.
State statute 6.10.
Well, you're a property owner and a resident.
No.
They are synonymous with
Whoa,
one
whoa, whoa,
another.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Or
or,
It doesn't say or.
we can't go against section statute 6.10, which
and,
says if you're a resident, you get to vote.
and there's also statute 33.01 parent 9 AR1 and AR2 and AR3. And it is to vote at an annual meeting, and now we're talking about the annual meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, to vote at the annual meeting of a lake district, the voter must be a US citizen over 18 years of age who is either an elector, and that's a qualified voter who resides in the district, an owner of property within the district, and that could be a person whose name appears on the tax roll, a person who owns title to the property, even though the person does not appear on the tax roll. And the third one is a person who is the official representative of a trust
Right.
or a corporation.
Right.
Okay, so that's basically 4 things that who people can vote.
But
That's
it
what
didn't
this
say
gentleman-
resident there.
It did say resident.
It does say
It
resident.
does say resident.
We've,
And we also
Right.
have confirmation of that from the county corporate council. That it is resident according to state statute. That's according to the corporation council.
I've had this discussion with other people in the community. We have discussed it at a conference. I have talked to the director of the UW Extension Lakes Program, which is a part of the DNR that oversees all the lake districts in the state. That director provided information to myself and to another citizen within the district. We've had corporate counsel of the Dunn County go through and explain that it's those four things that can vote in a election in the state of Wisconsin.
This is flat out wrong.
Well, you need to take it up with somebody other than us because we're simply following the rules of what we have to work with.
Just like we did with the mailers, put them on mailboxes, right?
Anybody
Anyone
else?
else?
There's a way to dissolve this program.
My name is Grant Peisig. I live E6203 819th Avenue, Colfax. Been to a couple of these meetings now. It seems like they start the same way every single time with people coming up and venting, which fair enough. You know, I guess we don't all agree on everything, but being a longtime resident of the lake and kind of I signed the petition to I'm in support of the Lake District. I think they did a good job of communicating it out. Now, if you live states away and things like that, I can certainly see how maybe you missed the boat. But the other thing to remember, and if I'm wrong on this, you guys please do correct me. But it seems like the main issue people have is taxes, right? They don't want to get charged more money, don't want to pay more property taxes. So how I understand it is that to impose a tax levy, not this annual meeting will be one, but probably the following one, where the board has been elected and they get to come up with a list of projects they think are appropriate to try on the lake. At that annual meeting, each one of those items gets voted on. And so if you're not in favor of anything, you just vote no to all of it and you try to kill it. And then be ready to accept the same results that we've had for forever. I walked down to the lake today. Went from being nice and clean no more than a week ago to boom, it popped. It's green, looks like a light coat of green paint. And if I were a betting man, I would bet that in 1 month it's much worse. And in another month, it's worse than that. To the point that it sinks like a manure pit. You can't let your dog swim in it. I have 4 young children who really enjoy using the lake. And I'm worried about them breathing it in, let alone getting in it. So you know, if you're just a pessimistic personality and you think there's absolutely nothing that can be done, fair enough. But if you think that there is something that can be done, which other lake districts in the state and other states have done, very tangible goals to improve it, the benefit of the taxes that you pay to help fund some of those programs is that your property value goes up. You know, so I think that's what we got to kind of remember. At most, it can be $2.50 per thousand that your house is worth. And these guys aren't proposing, they're proposing a small fraction of it right now, 9 cents per thousand that your house is worth. So just do the math. Even if it were $2.50, if you own a $400,000 house, it's $1,000 a year. Is that enough to sink you? And what happens if it does work? Your property value goes up tenfold that. That's why I'm being 1 hour away from the Twin Cities. Okay. That's why I think I guess we need to get over arguing about state statutes and actually get down to business and try to make this do something. That's all. Yeah.
I did not go just the process. Bass Lake did a study in 2016 for the weed abatement.
I'm gonna call point.
$1,000 per acre, that's 1.7 million per lake can.
Where's that money come from?
Not all acres are covered in weeds in Lake Tainter. You choose a bay.
Grant,
You choose small areas and
Grant.
attack it.
you're out of order. Thank you.
I'm out.
Sir, you're out of order also.
Yep.
Anybody else? Just so that everybody knows, we've encouraged people to get up and speak their mind. Now, this is the first time, and I think this is our 5th meeting, that I've not put a 2-minute limit on everybody. So, in the future, I won't, forget that, but, please be prepared to make your points. The other thing is, normally at meetings, if you have something to say, you give your testimony and nobody says anything from the board, and we've tried to be respectful of people's opinion, engage with them minimally, but realize that unless it's on the agenda, there's really nothing we can do about that item that you bring up. All we can do is take it in and put it on the next agenda if the board feels like it's an agenda item. So anybody else have anything to say? Okay, I'm gonna move on then. Thank you for your comments. And I apologize if you felt we were disrespectful. We're gonna talk about voting rights and later in the agenda. And we've kind of exhausted this topic. I know it's new to you. It's not new to us. Commissioner reports and communication. Does any of the commissioners have anything to report?
I will report that I received two $50 checks today from Joe and Lori Shervy in memoriam of two longtime lake residents, Dick Anderson and Ken Breckner.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Jerry, do you have anything to report?
I'll report that I submitted my nomination to be elected to the board at the annual meeting.
Good. Good.
And I apologize if I appeared to be cutting someone off or not, but we've done a very good job of communicating and thank you.
Okay, I'll report also, I went to the Northwest Lakes Conference in Spooner. That it's kind of a subset of the big lakes and streams conference in Stevens Point. I went to it on last Friday. That's a smaller conference. I think it was only about 100 people, but it was started because people in northwestern Wisconsin didn't want to drive all the way over to Spooner or to Stevens Point. And so got some valuable information, listened to Bill James, UW Stout, talk about phosphates in water and got some pretty good ideas about some of the things that you need to look at for data collection. The other thing is attended another session on legal and policy updates. And there aren't a whole lot of changes going on because it's mainly focused on the budget this year. So there wouldn't be a lot of law changes until they get the budget done. It'll be unless it's rolled into the budget. I don't know that they'll roll Lake District stuff into the budget. And then there was a number of other conservation topics that took place, but for $45, it was a good conference and a decent meal. I met a few other people that, Lake District people and things like that going on around the state. Okay, anything else to report, Jim?
Only thing I'll add is just that I sent this out in an email, but I'll mention it here, just that the minutes that we post are you know, they're brief, they're really just a short synopsis of the meeting. So in the interest of being able to, for those people who have not been able to attend meetings, we've been recording them. That's why you see this up here, and that's why we're having you talk into a microphone. And we're sharing those now on the Tainter Lake District website with a YouTube link. So at some point when we process this video will also be available so people can actually watch the meeting and get a little bit more context for the things that we talk about at the meeting if they can't attend. And as we've mentioned previously, the goal is to add a Zoom account for the district so that people can watch it live, and that's going to require cost that we'll have to pick up to do that. So,
Right.
Which is like $15 a month, I think, or $15.99 a month, or $149 for the year, which is $41 savings if we
Right.
do it a year in advance.
Yeah, and I think that's a good topic for the next board to, once the annual meeting is done, to talk about how they want to push out more information. And speaking to this gentleman's, I know there's things that we can do with emails, but there again, there's a cost to that. There is also a cost to maintain those lists.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things. So I think that when we get the next board, they can wrestle with some of those communication items. Anything else? Okay, treasurer's report.
Well, with the $100 donation I received today, we have $4,495.17 in checking and $5 in saving. That 17 cents is interest.
Have we spent any money?
Not a dime.
Okay, just so that you know, we haven't spent any money. Everything that we've done so far has been through donations and people donating their time, talents, and costs. Okay, we're to the discussion and action portion of the agenda. Last meeting, I had reported that I had a call about weed cutting, and that a person on the lake wanted to contract with a company that cuts weeds. He and his neighbors were going to pay for it. They wanted our permission to do that weed cutting. The thing, I contacted the biologist that is responsible for Tainter Lake, and he said that the DNR is absolutely not willing to relinquish their approval of weed cutting, and that it requires a permit, and it also requires to be part of a plan. And the reason why weed cutting is kind of a I wouldn't say sticky issue, but it is a sensitive issue with the DNR, is because of our algae bloom. We don't have a lot of vegetation. And once you don't have a lot of vegetation, they're not really willing to give up what vegetation we have, because that's habitat for all the other critters in the lake. So I directed that individual to talk to the biologist, and he can take it from there. I did encourage that person, if we get our budget passed and next year we're doing some planning, that to bring up that whole weed issue should be a part of any long-range plan that we have regarding the lake. So that's really requires no action on our part. Are there any questions?
When you said they were asking that we Are you talking about weeds in the lake?
Yes.
Or the lake bank?
We, in the lake.
And
So,
technically, they're not weeds.
well,
It's vegetation.
right, right.
It's mostly naturally occurring vegetation.
Right.
so.
I also got an email from a gal from Beaver Creek who's in charge of the invasive species. And she's going to be surveying the lake in July. And I told her that, no, I didn't really need to meet with her, but I'd like to see the results of that survey. Because I'm sure there's some curly leaf stuff and there are some invasives in our lake. I mean, just about everybody has them. How bad they are, I have no idea. But there again, that's another data point that we need to be cognizant of. Any other questions on weed cutting or, yeah, weed cutting? So it's out of our hands. We don't have to take it on, although we should have it as a part of our overall plan. Bylaw, district lake bylaws. Jerry, did you want to speak to the?
Yeah, there's some points. So I sent you guys what I had so far. Sorry, it was only a day ago, but been working very hard on reading the statutes and editing the document and getting all the stuff in there that we've discussed in previous meetings. Other than some minor grammar things, do you have a copy of them in front of you on your computer?
I'm bringing
Yep.
it up right now.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Article 3, Section 2, notice. A written notice of the annual meeting and budget hearing shall be mailed at least 10 days in advance of the meeting to all non-resident property owners whose name appear on the tax roll and to the Department of Natural Resources and the University of Wisconsin Extension. What about the residents? The Section 2 does not say that we need to send it to the residents as well. It would be only the tax roll.
Right. Well, if you look at the documentation, they're expecting us to make a good faith effort to include anybody we know. I mean, because from a practical standpoint, is we don't know who lives on the lake other than by the tax.
Well,
roll.
that's what's, I mean, yeah, there's other things that goes on to read about the postings and yada, yada, but, so does the tax roll have Tom's Nebraska address, or I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. Does it have his address in Nebraska on it, or does it have his lake?
Yeah. Yep. Because they need an address to build to.
So how should the bylaws read so that a notice, Section 2 notice of the budget hearing and annual meeting go to the owner as well as the resident? Or just add, or do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, so the basis of these are from, was it Beaver Dam or whatever it was, yeah.
right.
And so this is one where have read through this multiple times and just that this doesn't seem congruent with who's to attend,
Okay, so
both
here.
residents and
Right.
owners.
Here's what it says. Notice. The district secretary is responsible for preparing and mailing written notice of the annual meeting at least 14 days in advance to the meeting to all district property owners and electors. The district is required to use reasonable diligence to ascertain mailing addresses. As an alternative to mailing notice to electors, the district may publish notice of the meeting in 2 successive issues of the local newspaper known as a Class 2 notice. It's on page 70.
Yes, I'm there now. Thank you.
So that's.
So I need to change our new proposed bylaws to read more like this.
I would copy that exactly. This has been reviewed by attorneys several times.
Okay,
You know, I would change the 10 to 14.
yes. Okay, thank you. Can I use your pen?
Sure. I had another change that I would like to add to that, if I could.
Absolutely.
I gotta find it now. Like I was telling, Jim before the meeting. My internet is way wonky. And,
You may have to join my broadband task force.
I would love to. I would be just as emotional as was tonight, let me tell you. Just a minute. I'm getting it, just bear with me.
And as he's looking that up, I'll just say as a county board supervisor, that is my number one complaint from constituents is broadband access, followed closely by County Road B.
Which you solved, right?
Yes, County Road B is going to be under construction this year, part of it at least, anyway.
And then I imagine people are gonna complain about not being able to use County Road B, but
It's supposed to be open, but they're gonna pretty much do it this year from the intersection at Love's all the way up to BB.
okay, good deal. Cool. I would, add, and this is my suggestion, that we add under Article 8, Section 6, okay? I sent it to you, you don't have to write this down,
Okay.
I'll give it to you. But the Tainter Lake, and this is the wording that I came up with, now, it certainly can be changed. But the Tainter Lake District bylaws have been developed to provide a clear set of rules for board operations. It could also read board operations or district operations. They have been developed by the Lake District Board, approved at the annual meeting, and are aligned with the state statutes. If at any time the state statutes change and there is a conflict between the bylaws, state statute, or case law, the statute will take precedent and the bylaw updated in compliance with the statute at the next annual meeting. So in other words, you can't create bylaws that are in conflict with state statute. Now, let's say that something happened. Let's say they changed the residency requirement. This is just an example, okay? Let's say they changed something and our bylaws said one thing and the state statute said another. We would then have the ability, without changing bylaws between the annual meetings, that we would go with state statute priority, and then it would be updated at the next, because there are people in the state that say, well, why do you need bylaws? You have state statute. And my comment is, we need bylaws so that once we have these discussions, it's put down in order. And then they're more than just statutes too. If we ever get any projects going or whatever, you know, there's bidding requirements and all of those kinds of things that really aren't, that are vague in statute that we're going to define. And so, to me, bylaws create a local discussion as opposed to just saying it's in state statute. And I just want to cover our butts, and so that we have a clear, so we don't have a confusing conversation.
Makes sense to me.
I like it.
Okay,
Thank you.
and that,
Section 3, we talked about it last time and I didn't see the date. Nomination. So I tried to describe the process we came up with. And it's, how many days prior to the annual meeting did it have to be? Is it 45
Pardon me?
days prior?
For a
Yeah.
nomination?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's 45, except this year we're going with 30. We did not have 45.
right. I was counting the days when I was making mine out yesterday.
So what I
didn't work.
posted on our Facebook page, and I believe you posted it on the website, is for this year, we're going with 30. So the deadline, I believe, is July 5th or 6th. I'd have to go back.
I wouldn't have to turn around. That's why I was late. Forgot it. Turn around, got it. Anyway, so I should just leave the 45 days in and we'll be good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And just understand that we're allowing people up to 30 days in advance. And realize that at the day of the meeting, even though we do all of that, at the day of the meeting, there can be write-in votes also.
Right. The deadline that we're referring to is to be on the ballot, right? Okay, anyone can still
You're right.
run.
Yeah.
There can be nominations from the floor.
Correct.
That's essentially a write-in.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It states in here that the ballot has to have places for write-ins.
Right.
Yeah.
You do realize that most smaller districts like ours just hand out blank pieces of paper and they write down the names. Yeah. The bigger districts like Madison and some of the other ones, Waukesha County, they have actual ballots, but it's the point being that we can do whatever we want on that.
I also added, it said nominated candidates in a portion of their statement shall be published in the annual meeting notice. I don't want somebody to write a book and we have to publish that.
I would personally,
Or do we-
I would strike that and add that,
Or just their name? We don't need the statement?
no. I think that what we do is we ask people we give them 3 minutes at the, now this is just my opinion.
Yep.
That instead of, I don't want to be seen as creating criteria. What we're trying to do is get people to communicate why they want to be on the board. Not to limit people from running and to winnow down the slate of ballots.
Well,
But,
we did that by saying they had to write a statement of intent and.
right,
And 5 signatures.
right.
So they write it, but we don't publish it.
We can, I mean. it's-
Well, I think
It's up
we
to you
should
guys.
publish it. Because it's not important for us as much to see that information as it is for the entire Lake District to see it.
Right.
So it was my thought anyways, that we'd put them on Facebook, we'd put them on the website, so people could see before they got here and kind of rank their choices simply as a time saver.
Is that what you meant by publish? Is just on the website, or publish meaning printed it out?
Well, here it says publish their statements or shall be published in the annual meeting notice.
I would just take it on the website or electronic media.
Yeah, maybe change it to that, because I think that if it's available through the website, or there could be something saying, or by upon request. For somebody who doesn't have web access, who's in a donut,
Like those of us.
the internet donut.
But their names will be published in the meeting notice. Is that correct?
Yeah, if we have them, I don't see any reason why we can't publish them in the meeting notice.
Their
So that-
names.
Right. Now, this year may be a little different, because if the meeting notice goes out before somebody gets their name in, they're only going to appear on the website.
Yeah.
Not in the meeting notice. But I think you have it so that it's July 5th, right? Is the deadline?
July 5th, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
And I listed that they could email it to me, hand it to me at the meeting tonight, or they could mail it to me. So I included my contact information.
Thank you. Section 5, talking about the election of the commissioners. My notes were bad about 5 or 7. You clarified 7. Thank you. The other thing is that if, like, somebody is on a 3-year term, resigns in the first year, you're gonna appoint one, we're gonna vote on it, and they would serve until the annual meeting? Is that what we described?
Right.
I believe.
Yeah.
Not the full term of that person that resigned.
No. The-
Okay,
Just to clarify, the term stays the term. The appointee only gets to fill that term to the next annual meeting. But that term stays
so,
because of the rotation of, if we go to 7 members, there's going to be 3, 3, and 4,
perfect.
or 2, 2, and 3.
So the term stays the same. The appointee. Right, I need to write that properly in there. all right? Excellent, thank you. All right, yeah. That's questions I had so far.
Cool.
Good work, Jerry. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. That's tedious work, I know, but I think it's important again. You know, some of the importance, to my way of thinking, is in the discussion.
Absolutely.
And so, let me see. That's all I had. Is there anything else on the bylaws? Just for the public's clarification, that is an agenda item on the agenda for the annual meeting. And so the annual meeting, one of the things at the annual meeting is to approve the bylaws, and those bylaws will be posted prior to the annual meeting. So people have a chance to review. I can tell you, there's nothing weird or wonky in there, all right? It's all straightforward stuff. Okay, annual meeting preparation, the 5 meetings that we've had is to get to the annual meeting, and we are closing in on it. We had set a date of July 5th to be ready to roll with the annual meeting. Registration will take place. I said 4 tables. Some of the emails that I received, somebody said 5 or 6. I think if we open it up an hour in advance and we have 4 tables with, and I, just as a process piece, I'm saying paper, not computer, because it's easier to, we can alphabetize it. And we can alphabetize the tax roll. And then you can just flip to it, other than searching. If you have a computer, that way, hopefully we can gather some addresses of people that may not be on the or that may be residents, but not property owners, or gather some other information from them. It's a lot easier to write it longhand and then enter it later than it is to, especially if you're like me. No. Does that make sense?
So it was just my thought, Al, that if we break it out by township, we might be able to move things forward just a little faster. Overwhelmingly, property owners and residents are gonna come from Tainter Township.
Oh, yeah.
So it was my thought that if we put Red Cedar, Sherman, and Menominee Township at one table, and then open up 3 or 4, whatever we want to use for Tainter Township residents, we might be able to move people through quickly.
Okay.
It's just a thought.
Another
other thought
thought is
go ahead.
doing like vote, like they do for the election, and divvy it up also by names, last names. So like a table is M through Z, and then a table is, so that,
We can have 3 tables with Tainter, and then A through, F and, you know.
Cause otherwise I have, cause then you can divide up that list, cause otherwise someone might be checking in
Right.
and if everybody's, you'd have these multiple lists and we wouldn't necessarily know who's checked in at another table or something.
So you're saying by township and by name?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Were you saying that?
Yeah.
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 I
And-
think we're gonna have to also communicate the fact that people like yourself own in 2 townships. So we're gonna have to. They may have to stand in 2 lines,
Right.
or we can take care of it somehow.
I would-
Make a note with a highlighter or something, so we get people checked off on both township lists.
Well, he can only vote once, so
Right.
he only really is checking
I
once.
understand what you're saying, but just so Tainter Township and Sherman Township have this crossed off. So someone doesn't come for his address in Tainter Township and then someone else goes to, you know what I'm saying, to his address in Sherman Township.
I would say that you register, you sign in with us where you vote. So I
Okay,
I
there you
vote in the Sherman
there you go.
Township, not the Tainter Township. They won't even give me a dump sticker.
And there can't be that many of those dual
Yeah.
properties, are there?
Only if you own multiple properties, I would say, but and so I'm sure we ask people that question, do they have multiple properties? Do they? And that's something that the 4 of us can help with as we sit at tables, because I'd also suggested at the last meeting that not only do we have somebody doing it, but then there's the 4 of us.
Yep.
There to answer questions, because I tasked all of us to find one person to work. My wife is not going to know any of these discussions. Other than what I told her when we talked, but she's not gonna have the knowledge to interpret some of this.
Yeah.
That sound good?
Mhm.
Sounds good.
So you all got your volunteers?
Yep.
Same volunteer that I have?
Yep.
I have to have a volunteer?
Yeah.
How many?
One. If you don't have one, I got a couple of people that I can get.
Okay.
The only thing, Jerry, that I read, because I was doing some rereading, is that we should not have someone registering people. For instance, your wife should not be registering people if you're running for a seat, for a commissioner's
That
seat.
sucks. Because I'm gonna be running.
I think we can double check.
I think that is for tallying the votes during the annual.
There you go. Okay,
Annual meeting, not for
You're
the
right.
registration,
you're right. I stand
because
corrected.
they have there's no vote counting.
Correct.
But then in the annual meeting, when there's vote, let's say the secret ballot. Okay, and again, I'm going back to statute. The statute allows for the voting for the commissioners to be done by secret ballot, okay? And that needs to be tabulated. And then so you point somebody from the audience to tabulate those and you wouldn't appoint
Correct.
a spouse or somebody that.
Thank
that
you.
has a
Thank you
vested
for
interest.
correcting me on that.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so, let me know if you have trouble getting somebody to.
I see one now.
Okay, agenda. I actually just copied the agenda that's in the People of the Lakes book out, put it together. I sent that to board members. There's a couple of things I want to explain on it. Let me see, let me go down. Okay, the meeting's called the order. Just so that you know, I get the fun job of my, of running that because that's what it says.
Yep.
the president, the current president gets to run that annual meeting. So the meeting's called to order. Approve the minutes of last year's meeting. Okay. There's the chairperson and committee reports. Well, we've had no committees, so, but again, I put that in there so that we state we've had no committees. There's a treasurer's report. So Tom, you're required to give a report of, how much we've collected and what we've spent. It's pretty easy.
Yep.
Presentation and submission of the annual audit. Well, because we've not spent any money and we've only had 1 month of a bank account, I didn't see any reason to go to the expense of having an audit. We will next year.
Yep.
But I had it in as a placeholder
Good.
for next year. So next year will be 13 months of audit instead of 12.
Oh, you want to do it? Cover that next year.
Right.
You're gonna say we could have an audit by. It's a pretty simple audit, is my
Right.
point. Any of us or
I would say,
almost anyone could look at it and go, yep. Sign their name, audit it.
yeah, if you want to do it that way, I would just put it a 13-month audit, but if you think that we should do it, it's totally up to you.
My only thought is that it's in the statute that we do an annual audit, right?
Right. But you gotta have money to audit, so. And we do have money now.
And I guess the other point would be, it hasn't been around a year, so. I guess we can let it slide, but it would, I mean, if we just wanted to check the box, we could.
Okay.
So,
I agree
Trevor,
with
what do
you,
you
Jerry.
think?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Let's do it. When it came to communications, we've tried to go above and beyond. So if we're talking about financials, it'd be a good idea to go above and beyond as well.
Okay.
Can I do it or?
I would think that
Does
we
it
would
have to be
want to
an
have
independent?
somebody off the board to do it. I think there's been several people that have talked to me about volunteering for stuff. I think we can contact them and see if they would perform that function.
And for this year, I think a volunteer would be sufficient.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Future
pretty
years-
easy.
I want to pay someone to do it.
Yeah, agree with you, John. Yeah, just this year, I think a volunteer.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, consideration of projects, and I think this speaks to the order of things. Okay. There's 3 things in this order. And we can move them around. Well, you really can't move them around, but the first of all, and this was what Grant was talking about, is you present the projects that are in the budget. Okay, so there's a review of the budget. So what's actually in the budget? All right. So there is, again, this kind of organization runs on projects so that you would present the projects and the assembly gets to approve the projects. Okay, you approve the project, then you review and consider the total budget. Okay, that gets approved by the assembly, which is the people at the annual meeting. And then you consider the approval of the corresponding tax levy of the 2 previous things that you've approved. So you approve the projects, you approve the budget, then you approve the tax levy. That's the order at which it does. So that all of the people that are in the assembly, they get direct. We're just putting out there exactly what, we think the direction of the district, they get the final say in what that is. We don't get that final say. We get a vote, but we don't get a say.
Do you have that in a spreadsheet so that if our project gets not approved, that the tax levy will be calculated based on the changes?
Yep.
Of the previous?
And I
thing?
can state that at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if something changes,
So if something changes, somebody comes in and says, hey, it should be $25,000. and they make a motion to do that, I can calculate what that's going to be. Okay. Okay, and I've been asked to put this in, and Tom said he would speak to it. One of the powers of the annual meeting is to expand elected commissioners from 3 to 5. Just so that everybody's aware. Jerry and I were appointed by the county board. Zach Raff was also appointed by the county board. Those are the 3 positions that you're going to be voting for. Jim is a representative of the county. Tom is a representative of Tainter Township. They're appointed by those. They are not up for election. Jerry and I are. You can have a 7-person board instead of a 5-person board. Okay. But it has to be approved at the annual meeting. Okay. So the proposal has been to move the voted on positions from 3 to 5, which would make it a 7-person board. Did I explain that clearly?
Mhm.
Tom, you're going to speak to the issue as to why that's being proposed at the annual meeting.
Yes, I will.
You can do it now.
Oh,
Or
okay.
did you want to?
No, I can do it right now. I just.
Just give the 2-minute.
Okay, this was a rough draft today. I put it together this afternoon, but
Oh, I didn't want to speak to it now, but.
no, I'm okay doing it.
Okay.
I've been asked to explain why a 7-member board is better than a 5-member board and why I hope that the Lake District will vote to increase the board size. From the perspective of a new board member and probably new board members on a new board, I think it's quite simple why bigger is better. Number one, seven total board members gives us a more diverse perspective of the lake and the problems we as residents experience day to day. We have some different issues on Lower Tainter compared to Upper Tainter. I think having more people bring those ideas to the table is a good thing. A 7-member board gives us an opportunity to draw from a more diverse area of expertise. Obviously, these guys have their areas of expertise. My area of expertise is that I can hunt and peck on a Word document. That's about it. But number 3, a 7-member board gives us flexibility should someone's life get in the way. We experienced something that's never happened on a new board, and that is that one of our commissioners had to leave. He accepted a new job and could no longer be a board member, so we had to go without. Well, on a 5-member board, to get a quorum, you need 3 people here. Well, that doesn't leave a lot of flexibility if someone gets sick. So if we have 7 people, a quorum is 4 people. Okay, that means 3 people could be gone. I think it would be rare that something like that would happen, but we could have someone on vacation, someone that's sick, someone that had to work. All those things could come into play. With a 7-member board, it reduces the chances of that happening. After our annual meeting, we'd like to develop different committees to attack problems like fundraising, project development, project management, volunteer organization, and development of a lake plan. We've had several people offer their help in these different areas, and with more board members, we could help lead these committees. We'll be able to put volunteers to work in the areas that they enjoy and have knowledge. The last thing, and it's really simple, there will be plenty of work to keep a larger board busy. This is a volunteer organization and not all board members have complete flexibility in their schedules. 7 members will give us the flexibility that we seek.
So to summarize, you're saying more representation,
Yep,
a larger division of work.
yep,
Is that accurate?
that's accurate.
Any other questions that the board has of Tom?
Well put.
Okay, it's on the agenda. After the that vote. The only question I would have. Yes, I did change it. The question I would have is. Would it be better to put that first and the bylaws second?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So we're gonna vote by a show of hands.
Right.
Expand the board from 5 to 7.
Right.
Yep.
The whole audience is gonna be unanimous. We'll
Right.
Approve that.
right.
Then we'll have the bylaws that are written for 7.
Right.
That'd be great.
And if they don't, then we just change it. Okay, just to be clear, it's never gonna be lower than 3 elected positions. So in other words, because that's what's in the statute is to have a 5-member board. So it's not like you can say, well, we just want 3-member board. It's expansion, not subtraction. Election of the commissioners, just for the point of clarification for those people that are here. We are. What we decide, because if it expands to 5 voted positions. Or 5 elected positions. The top 2 are going to get the 3-year terms. The next 2 are going to get the 2-year terms, and the least, the 5th least vote getter will get a 1-year term. That's as you start this out, so that as a rotation, that you will always have 2 positions up, except for that 3rd year, you'll only have 1 position. Unless you have somebody doesn't complete their term, and then they would double up on that next one. So there's always the rotation. The rotation always stays the same, the people in and out of it, move in and out. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And it's done by secret ballot, okay? And statute, again, I hate saying it, but by statute, you can vote secret ballot on the people. The results are not secret. It's just that you don't have to do it by a show of hands, okay? And so all the other items, people have to raise their hands. That's not covered under a secret ballot. So everybody has to raise a hand. Just so that the audience knows, and what we've talked about in the past is that when you've registered or you've signed in, and you can verify that you are a resident of the district, you will get a colored 3x5 card. Okay? And you will get that, and then when we ask for consideration of projects, we'll explain what it is, whatever. Then we call for a vote. When the question's called, and everybody raises a card, we count the cards, not the hands. Okay, because so that is, if people, if somebody attends that hasn't signed in, they don't get a card. And so we're not just counting hands.
Yeah, because there could be somebody that's there that is just with somebody or helping somebody
Or
get
curious.
to the meeting. Yeah, or curious.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Will there be a provision for proxy voting?
no. There is no proxy voting. You have to be in person to vote.
According to state statute. Yep, statutory, no absentee voting.
Okay. The other thing, I would say about, the agenda and posting the agenda. And I'm making the recommendation that we post the agenda as a class 2, a class 2 posting also, besides sending out as the email, or not the email, but the letter. In the statute, it says, or I would, for our case, I would do and a class 2. It's a little more money, but it is, I think, the best we can do. Again, we're trying everything we can do to get people to know what's going on. And then the next board can decide what it's going to do. It'll be a lot easier the second time through than the first time through. So I would propose that we do that. The other thing is, I would also propose that we do the agenda and that we also put the budget in also, just like school districts do. They put the, I put the summary sheet in.
Yep.
As post that.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that's gonna have to probably go in about next week. Just so that everybody knows.
Right.
To get, you have to do it twice before the meeting. Okay, nomination process. That's it on the agenda. Does anybody else have?
What is the nomination process in the annual meeting? I mean, how's that gonna go?
I don't know. This is my, you. that-
Curious.
Oh,
I mean, you guys mentioned that, write it. So my vision of, here's your ballots, y'all vote, hand them back.
Right.
You were talking about a writing candidate, a nomination from the floor,
Yep.
or candidates just.
Because a nomination from the floor could be a write-in, basically someone saying, well, I nominate Jerry Porter to be on the ballot, and you could say, well, I guess I accept, and then people would write your name down, or people could just
write
be-
your name in.
be writing anyway. It's the same, it's kind of the same thing.
So. You're gonna open all that to the floor and people,
I'm gonna have to get clarification on it. I think it's more like what you said the second time. I think it
Second
can kind of go both ways, that somebody can nominate somebody else as a write-in and
Mhm.
they can be voted on, or somebody can do say, oh, I want to be considered as a write-in and vote for
They can
me,
nominate themselves from the floor, essentially.
and vote for me.
so that means you're gonna ask for those who care to be candidates, and if you're on the ballot or not, come up and you have a minute to speak. Or something. I'm trying to understand how that's gonna work.
Yeah, I'm, the politeness in me says, if you're nominated from the floor and you haven't had any kind of, gone through any of the signatures and done any of the other things, I think you get a minute or two to kind of state your case. That would be the polite thing from that standpoint. I don't know how you guys want to work it.
But if they haven't read the notice and they haven't submitted their names and they haven't done the work. Why do they?
Well, they can, because anybody can get nominated, but the chances of somebody actually getting elected as a write-in is going to be pretty low. If someone's really serious about, I mean, the reason we're kind of expanding this for, that we're talking about it, and that the reason that there's an election, and the reason that I'm assuming that the two of you are going to probably run, Jerry's already said he's running for a permanent or the next seat on the board, is that you care about the direction of this committee. You're willing to put in the effort that it takes to do that. We don't get paid to show up here. When, some committees and some districts, the commissioners get a stipend or whatever. the person who actually submits nomination stuff and goes through that and actually is on a ballot is a better chance of getting elected. But if somebody showed up and, maybe someone didn't hear of something until the last minute or whatever, and they really feel passionate at the meeting and want to be a write-in, then, that's that opportunity that they have. That it's probably, it'll be a challenge to get elected as a write-in. But it has happened, like the sheriff in Eau Claire County was elected originally as a write-in, and also a senator in Alaska, so.
Just curious about the process and how you're gonna handle that, because I've never seen it done.
It is the power of the annual meeting is to be able to do that. And we have to leave space for a write-in.
Totally understand you gotta have writing candidates.
Right.
But how you handle it at the meeting
Right.
as to giving them time or space or asking for them or whatever
Well,
is another thing.
I don't think it's gonna be a ton of people
I don't need.
that are gonna be involved in
A write-in campaign.
the write-in or people that submit
Ballot.
their paperwork. I think if we're gonna give those write-in people a minute to talk, and I don't think we need to give them a whole lot more than a minute. Because if you're serious, come prepared. But I think those people that took the time to put in their paperwork should probably get a minute as well, because even though their thoughts are on paper or on on Facebook or on the website, people might not be able to put a face with a name. And if you stand up for a minute and say, hi, I'm Jerry Porter, et cetera, they'll go, oh, okay, that's Jerry Porter. I know who he is. And I think it's only fair that you get a chance as well.
I agree. Totally.
So if we're gonna give the write-in,
Yeah, it should be that. I think that
Okay.
I think each of the candidates that are actually on the ballot should have an opportunity to speak, and then if there are nominations from the floor or somebody that wants to be considered as a write-in, this would be their opportunity after the candidates on that have gone through the process have the opportunity to speak.
So if I understand the board's wishes. If somebody is nominated from the floor, they get a minute? The elevator speech?
Yep.
Okay, the summary. What I'm unclear about is, are we gonna give? If nobody is nominated from the floor. Okay, and I would say nominated from the floor means there's a motion and a second. That there is, if there's nobody that does that, are we gonna give everybody then a minute to give the elevator speech? Or are we just gonna say?
I mean, the nominations from the, unless, if there are no nominations from the floor and people are just gonna write in things, then I think there has to be a motion and a second, because otherwise, how would you know who those write-in people are? And
Well, by our bylaws, we are the nominating committee.
mhm,
So what we would do is when we come up to the commissioners. And what our slate of candidates is. Then we would say, these are the people that have satisfied their, the bylaws or submitted their proposal or their.
Signatures.
Signatures, plus they've answered these questions. Are there any nominations from the floor? None. Are we gonna turn to those people for just exactly what you said? And say, you have 1 minute to summarize what you had, because maybe people don't know.
Yeah.
Or are we gonna make that assumption? Or are we gonna do that way? Or are we gonna just say, here's your people, vote on?
I think we should give them a minute. It's a minute. And I think it's fair.
That's
Okay.
fine.
I mean, in Jerry's case, he can say, I have been, on the board, and this is what I've done, et cetera. That's fair to him.
Well, and I think that there's 3, 6, 9, there's 12 people here tonight. There's usually about 12 people. If we have 100 people, I'm sure these 12 people are gonna be there, but that means that there's 88 that haven't been here to know what's going on. So I think it's fair to give people an opportunity to summarize what they stand for.
Okay, so if I get this, to get this right, I can say nominations from the floor will require a first and a second.
Because.
A motion and a second, yeah.
Motion in the.
Okay. Yep,
Yeah, and because as the nominating committee, as stated in our bylaws, we are the nominating committee. We're going to put forth the slate of people for consideration for the assembly. Okay? That makes sense? Status report. Electors and voting, discussion of electors. This is where we've, I just wanted to say on the discussion of the electors, and I emailed a document to all of the board, that I didn't share with anybody that contacted me that had questions about what the definition of an elector is. I did that on purpose because I thought that before I started sharing stuff out, I wanted the reaction from the board as to what this was. And just so that you know, I've had multiple discussions over the last, well, actually the last month. Actually, since Tom, you and I went to Stevens Point in March, about electors, who's an elector. We have had, I have had discussions with Eric Olson, who is the director of the Lakes program, like I said, with the DNR. We've had the county corporate council weigh in on this discussion. I think after the day, I'd really like to put this thing to bed in that we've spent hours interpreting this. Our bylaws reflect the interpretation of an elector. And just to repeat, an elector, that voting in the annual meeting, not in this meeting, but in the annual meeting, is number one, of legal voting age, citizen of the United States, and a resident of the Lake District. And they can be a property owner, okay, a resident. They can be a non-resident property owner. Okay, again, that's expanding who gets to vote, because no other elections in the state of Wisconsin can you not live in your district and get a chance to vote. Or you can be a representative of a corporation, foundation, or organization that owns property. One person, one vote, which means you can, on each question, you only get one vote. So if you own 5 properties, you still only get one vote. Are we clear? That, again, I've had multiple verifications of that, and that's according to everybody I've talked to.
Can I publicly thank you for all your hard work on that effort? I mean, you've gone way and above and beyond.
Yeah, well,
On that question. And that's why my tone was a little negative at the start of this meeting, is because of negative Facebook comments about our efforts. And I know how hard you've been working on it, and how hard all of us have been working on this.
Yeah.
And it irks me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. By the way, I used to get paid to do this. I don't anymore. That's the annual meeting. I do want just a point of clarification. I want especially the public to understand that you have to sit through the meeting to vote. It's not like an election of a person. You get to come in and cast the ballot. It's an assembly under Robert's Rules of Order. You have, somebody will call the question on a particular item. Let's use the moving from 3 to 5.
Yep.
Somebody will make that motion. There will be a second. There will be discussion, and then there will be a vote. Then we go to the next agenda item. It's not that you get, and that is by a raise of the card or the hand. The card, and we'll count the cards. And then we'll have 3 people who are not associated with us, the 3 volunteers. And they will do that counting. And the reason why we should have 3 is if you have 1, then you could miss something. We don't have a canvassing of votes like you would after a normal election. You would have 3. If there are 3 people that they better come up with the same number.
Right.
Or they will recount it.
They're gonna sit there until they come up with the same number,
Right, right,
or they're gonna continue to vote,
right.
or count, I mean.
Right. The one point of clarification, I know that we've had people come and ask about, well, what happens if there are there's 2 of us on the ballot or on the tax roll, but we have 5 owners, okay? You have to bring verification that those other people are on the deed or on the title. Okay, that's your responsibility to bring that and prove that. No, if it's on the tax bill, you're okay. But if it is just you and your husband on the tax bill and your siblings are in joint ownership. Right. But does it have all of you on the tax bill? Then you're good. As long as they're named. Okay, because. Right. Right. Don't go down that road. You're eligible electors in the for the piece. But if, for example, if my property was owned by my brothers and myself, but I paid the taxes, but they're on the title, they get a vote, but you have to prove that they're on the title or the deed. That's.
What about a trust?
Trust gets 1 vote. The trust appoints a person to get 1 vote. Okay,
Okay, in our case, both our names are on the trust.
on the trust, 1 vote. Unless you're a resident. Unless you're a resident.
Another statutory.
I didn't make the rules.
I know.
I'm just working through them. Okay, the last thing we have to talk about is this mailing that's coming up. Oh, or it's actually 2 things I want to talk about. As things roll downhill, and always do and always will, I kind of got the assumption or whatever that, well, let me ask you this. Who wants to put that mailing together? Because we have to get it to L&M. Does somebody want to work on it? I mean, does anybody have a burning desire to do it? I will certainly help anybody that wants to do it.
I will help you.
That's the part that was rolling downhill.
Yeah.
You said something different about voting than you said earlier. You said as long as their name is on the tax bill, regardless of the number, they can vote. But before you said resident, so residence is not renters, right?
No, residence is if you live in the district.
Yeah.
It doesn't say how you live there. It says if you live there and you call an address within the district, your home, you're an elector.
As long as your name appears on the tax bill, you can vote.
No, you don't have to. All you have to do is show that you live at that address. Your name does not,
A renter can't vote.
right.
Like utility bill or something like that, they have to presume that you have to go register for voting.
Driver's license.
So the bylaws will state that it's the typical Wisconsin statutes around voter identification. However, we have a document called a what was it called?
I get it, yeah. It is called a voter certificate.
Yes, Lake District Voter Certificate. So if you walk in and say, I live in the district and you're willing to sign the Lake District Voter Certificate stating you live there. And then we check it out and then you don't meet the criteria, you are.
You were in violation of section 12.13 of the Wisconsin statute voter fraud, which prohibits any person voting at the annual meeting unless the person meets the Lake District's voting requirements as an owner or as an elector who resides within the district.
And could be prosecuted?
Yes,
Yes. So if you want to sign it, we're not going to look for your title, or well, we will look at the tax roll, but we won't look at other things. We'll just make you sign this. That's our out, I guess.
right. Well, it covers everybody and underscores the significance of this is looked at just like any other voter fraud or whatever that you're saying that you reside in the district or own property in the district. If you don't,
And it's easy to verify the ownership thing because of the tax records and why we're talking about this document are for the people who rent and live in a property that's on the lake, but are renters.
Right.
They obviously, a renter, someone who lives at the login can vote in the town of Tainter for anything.
Right.
For any election or whatever, because they are a resident.
Right.
And the same thing applies to the Lake District, because they are a resident of a property on the lake.
In the district.
In the district.
so we are not the election police. We are doing our best to make sure that everybody that's legitimately a elector does so, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the onus back on that person by this certificate that says, okay, it's up to you. If you're fraudulent, then we're gonna turn it over to the DA and they can decide what to do with it. That's not our gig. And so that's the voting process with that.
And the if you think about the terminology that comes up repeatedly in all of the statute stuff is like owners and electors. There's always an and because it's not just property owners, it's owners and electors and qualified electors because it's the residents in the district who are renters who do not own the property.
And you don't have to be a registered voter to vote in this. All you have to be is a resident
Mhm.
and you can prove
And legally, yes.
and that you can prove it.
Mhm.
Because that's another thing. We're not maintaining voter lists.
Where are we? Agenda.
Okay, so So Tom, you're gonna help me?
Yeah,
Anybody else want to get in on the
I'll bring
fun?
you a coffee.
I'll help in whatever, I mean, as far as getting started in that and then looking it over and even if doing some formatting and making it look presentable and also so that it calls attention to certain aspects of it or whatever. And also just putting on my county board hat and looking at some mailings that, the county board has done and looking at it with that kind of an eye
If,
too.
how about if we do it this way, so that we all have a little bit in the pie? That if you have any examples of what the county's put out, shoot it to Tom and I. We will put a draft together to shoot to you, to review it for formatting and, kind of putting it in a logical order.
And,
then
and
you-
not to volunteer him, but I'm sure that Andrew, the county clerk, would be willing to at least help.
Just
look at-
a
Because
reviewer.
that's something that he's used to, obviously, sending that kind of stuff out.
Even if you could contact him and say if he has like a Microsoft publisher or even
Nobody uses Publisher anymore.
You just dated yourself, Al.
well,
Sorry.
I gotta use the tools that I know how to use, okay?
They still license that stuff?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out going from a PC to a Mac and it's I'm struggling at times, but then you get then when we get that done, we're gonna put it to you so that you can play kind of devil's advocate to see
Sure.
that we make sure that we got all our, because sometimes you get so in the weeds that I forget some of the easy things. And it's like, there's a couple of things that we have, we need to say if there are, we don't have an address for a resident and needs to send it to a property owner. If there's somebody at that residence other than a property owner, we should encourage the property owner to tell the resident or to pass. That we have to rely on that. That's our good faith effort to try to get this all out. And then Tom has already got the addresses, the mailing addresses. There's 38 pages of mailing addresses that we can take and we can get those to, once we get this all done, we can get this to L&M and then we can get it out. And I imagine they'll need a couple of days to get it done. So I'd like to have all of this wrapped up by the Friday of, I'd like to be walking into L&M and giving it to them on Friday after the 4th. So then that, so that gives them plenty of time to get it out. I know that's kind of tight, but let's put it this way. We haven't had a lot of time on anything that we've ever had to do.
No.
So. Does that make sense? And then we can get it out.
That
And
works.
if anybody has any addresses of people that are not property owners that we should be sending this to, please let us know and we'll certainly add them to the list. Parliamentarian. Jim has been shaking the weeds and coming up empty-handed with finding a parliamentarian. I had recommended that we have a parliamentarian specifically for the first.
Did you ask your wife about her friend?
No.
Well, she was there actually when we had the discussion, so.
Yeah, I kind of avoided that subject there. Yeah, right. Well, I haven't been stellar in the husband department. So I said, I didn't want to ask for favors when the answer was going to be no, but there is the Parliamentarian Association or Society. There's that, or I was wondering if one of us wanted to act as a parliamentarian.
I am not skilled enough, even though I have been on the county board for years and chair a committee. I wouldn't trust myself to be the Roberts Rules expert. So here's what I guess I'm gonna suggest. I've kind of asked her, actually, I've got someone I might be able to ask tomorrow that I have a Zoom meeting with. Who's a good parliamentarian is, you know, typically a lawyer. Because they're used to that stuff, and I have a lawyer who's retiring. Who actually I had wanted to have as our district lawyer. And he's asking me to help him with something tomorrow morning. A personal thing. So I am going to ask him if he would be willing to serve as a parliamentarian. He's also perfect because he can get prickly and shut somebody down if they're out of order. So
Attorneys can.
yes. So I can ask him tomorrow morning, and I guess if that doesn't, that Wisconsin Parliamentarian Association, their Facebook page doesn't really have any information on it. And when you click on their website, it goes to a national one. And then if you look it up and try to do criteria for just Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It recommends people in Missouri or Idaho and all over the place. So I'll see what he has to say tomorrow. And if that doesn't work, I'll actually call that a place and see if they have somebody in the state. Since they have an association, they've got to have people. What I want to avoid is someone that just does it because they think it's fun, you know, that is part of the club because they like to do the rules, but someone who's actually done a meeting and can knows the rules and can object and make sure that those things are being followed.
If your attorney can't do it, then let me know and may have a line on. I can get me.
What about your wife's friend?
I'll talk to her tonight. I got back in good graces. So maybe time to strike. I will ask. But I think it's important that we have a smooth meeting and that's. And it may cost us some money, just so that you know, and so whatever.
Money well spent.
Right. Okay. That's it for one other thing, recognition of community donations and donors. You have, you said that you got $100 more.
Yep.
In donations, and we're up to $4,495 in donations
17 cents.
and 17 cents. Again, I would like to publicly thank those people that have contributed it. That's been a very positive thing of this organization is that we have been able to raise $4,700 without too much arm twisting. Basically, Tom, you've done, you know, a lot and with getting people to donate and things like that. And thank you for your efforts on that part. But I would also like to make note that the new board, I would encourage the new board, I think as a part of our website that we need to have a benefactor list or some page or something that honors those people. I mean, there is a local business that has given money. I think it's just fair to them to get the recognition if they want to be recognized. If they don't want, if they want to be anonymous, I would let them be anonymous, but.
Well, yeah, we had one
We had-
anonymous.
Yeah. And I have the name and information of everyone that's donated, so.
Right, so I think.
Could you just compile that in one note and then I'll put a page on the website?
Yeah.
Cause then I can also add a page that says for additional donations.
Right.
You know, that people can.
Right.
Cause that's a thing to add to it. Now that we actually have a bank account, we could actually set up like a PayPal account that would be attached to that bank account that people could simply, would be real easy to incorporate that into the website.
And I think that that's a good way to go. And I just want to honor those people that have contributed to us. The other thing is the budget. I have a budget and I wanted to just make note, and we didn't talk about budget tonight because we approved it at the last meeting. But the budget, just so that people are dealing with accurate figures. That our budget that we're proposing is $15,731.28. Okay. That as a property tax, and that's with the only project we have going is we're gonna be writing a grant for a planning grant. That's the only project we have that we're proposing is to write a planning grant. If we get the planning grant, we have to upfront the money. So if you write a $5,000 planning grant, you gotta have the $5,000 in the bank to upfront the money. So that's why that is the only project in the budget. I thought I had the tax impact in here. I'll give you the exact tax impact of the, oh crap, that's of that. That tax impact is $9.66 per $100,000 worth of property value. So the average property value on the lake is $250,000. That tax impact is $24.15. So that people have accurate information. That's all. And that's what that was approved. And I just wanted people to know. I keep hearing all kinds of other numbers. But this year, the average, it's $9.66 per $100,000 in value. We're asking $15,731.28 on $162 million worth of property value. That and that could go down if as they sell property and I don't know what the townships have done with their reassessments, if there's been any reassessments that have been going on, but that's that. That's all I have, gents. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well,
Next
first of
meeting?
all, do we want to set another meeting
Oh,
before?
yeah, that's right.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
Good point.
on.
See, I always miss something. I'm just tired. Do we want to do another meeting before we have the annual
I
meeting?
think it's,
I think
yeah,
we
I
should,
think it's really,
yes.
I think it's important. There's gonna probably be some logistics. With the table manning and all that stuff, and who knows what other stuff might crop up before then, so. I am looking at the calendar. For this room, if we keep it on a Thursday, the 27th is out. The 13th, there's a meeting in here at 4. Guessing that would go at least a couple of hours, but right now it looks like this room might be available on the 20th.
Works for me.
At night?
Mm-hmm.
5 o'clock.
At the same time.
Yep.
I'm guessing it's not, sometimes there are things reserved in this room that aren't on the public calendar, but
Right.
right now I see that seems to be open.
20th works for me.
All right, I will actually,
July 20th.
I will send a note right now to ask if that's open.
And that should be just the agenda items on that are just the wrap up of the annual meeting is all we're gonna talk about.
Put the bylaws on there again.
Bylaws.
The mailing's already gone, so.
Okay,
I move we adjourn.
there's been a motion to adjourn. I seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
We're adjourned.
thank you for coming, folks.
And we will stick around to talk to anybody that wants to talk.